Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our continuing journey as we explore ePortfolio tools and technologies. My name is Patty Donahue. I'm here representing ePortfolio California, and today we'll be discussing the widely popular and international open source platform Mahara. And we have some very special guests with us today, and we will introduce them very shortly. But first, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we have a wonderful team participating in this effort. This project is co-sponsored by ABLE, EPAC, and ePortfolio California. And I really want to thank everybody who has put time and effort into putting this together. This is our last session of the fall series. And we're really happy to announce that we will continue this in the spring, so we'll be sending out information about the lineup and the schedule shortly. I also wanted to mention that this session is being recorded and archived for future reference. And really, it's part of a growing resource that we are building as part of this project. At the end of the session, we will be transferring some documents to you. You can save them or not. One of them is a comparison chart side by side of the different tools we've looked at so far in the series, and also a really nice handy reference guide to all the links and additional information about this particular session, the Mahara session. So thanks to Judy Batson for putting that together. Appreciate that. So before we begin, this is our standard poll, and hopefully we have some new people here today. So we want to just take a moment and hear from you. And also, I want to say that this is a web chat, so don't be shy. Please put your questions or comments or concerns in the chat window. We'll be answering questions throughout, and we'll also have a Q&A at the end. But anything we don't get to in this session, we're going to transfer right over to a forum that Christina Hoppner from Mahara is going to be monitoring and answering your questions. So first, let's get to this poll. As you can see, we only have 5 choices, A, B, C, and D, in the participants window in the upper left. So if you take a moment and tell us. But if you did have another answer, you could put that in the chat window. So give you about 15, 20 seconds. Again, in the upper left participants window, you'll see A, B, C, D, E. And maybe I should read aloud this poll question. Which factor is most important when considering an ePortfolio solution for your institution? A, interoperability with other systems. B, pricing and licensing. C, assessment capabilities. D, teaching and learning. And E, all of the above. And then again, we'd love to hear some other answers to that. So another second there, and I'm going to publish the results. Okay. So I don't know if everybody got a chance to do that, but those are our results at this time. Thank you for moving that. Okay. So let's move on. I'd like to introduce our host for this session, Dr. Helen Chen. Helen is a research scientist in the field of ePortfolios. We're very, very lucky to have her as part of this team. Helen is also is the co-founder of EPAC. And if you're not familiar with EPAC, the Electronic Portfolio Action and Communication Community of Practice, at the end there'll be a slide where you can go to her website and join this listserv. So Helen, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you get started.
Great. Thank you so much, Patty. And I guess, first of all, I would just like to acknowledge again the great efforts of both Patty as well as Judy this entire fall in really making sure that this webinar series actually happens. I mean, certainly without them, there's no way that we could have gone through all the practice runs, the day before the webinars, the communications back and forth. So really, applause, for both Patty and Judy's efforts. Again, this is our last webinar of 2011, and it's certainly been an amazing fall in terms of the opportunities to explore these various tools. And we're certainly delighted to go out with a bang this year with Mahara and to have Christina Hoppner and Ellen Marie Murphy talk about the tool. You can see the extent of their experiences as described in their bios here, so I won't go to that in great detail, but go ahead and just turn it over to them and let them go ahead and move on with their presentation.
Thank you very much, Helen, for the introduction. And this is Fatima speaking, and I'm very happy to have had the opportunity to give you a few glimpses of Mahara during the next 50-odd minutes. And please, as Patty said, feel free to put any questions into the chat so that we either address them directly during the presentation or during the Q&A session right afterwards. To get started, we have another little poll for you. We had already talked a little bit or seen a poll about the uses of ePortfolios, but here I'm more interested in what type of ePortfolios you are already familiar with, what you already use. And so please, again, choose one of the options that are in the participant window, or if you have other uses of ePortfolios, please put them into the chat window. And while we are still waiting for a few people to answer questions, just a little comment about myself. As you could briefly see on the bio, I work for Catalyst IT in New Zealand, and we are an open source software development company. And one of our open source software that we develop in-house together also with international contributors is Mahara. But we are also Moodle partners, and we also work with Drupal. Okay, that looks very good. So it looks like a lot of student assessment, not so much project work, some showcases, all of the above. That is good, 15%. And then we also have some answers in the chat. The question of why I asked this question is because just to give you, or to keep in mind all these different uses of ePortfolios, because in the second part of the presentation, Ellen Marie will give you some examples of these uses and also show how that can be achieved in Mahara. As I already mentioned briefly, Mahara is an open source ePortfolio system, and it was started in New Zealand in 2006 to provide a platform for tertiary institutions to work with ePortfolios. And as it is an open source portfolio, you can install it yourself, you can have it hosted, or access it on a software as a service basis without having to pay any license fees. So usually it's just hosting fees that come into play. And depending on the hosting option that you go for, you can also shape the application to your own needs and make changes as you see fit. So you don't have to go with what comes out of the box, but you can change virtually everything around. At the moment, we know of 290 Mahara installations worldwide, and that have close to 500,000 users. But as nobody is required to register with the project, there are many more installations that we just don't know of. And one installation doesn't necessarily mean one institution, but many institutions can be on one Mahara instance. For example, in New Zealand, we have myportfolio.school.nz. And I'm putting all the links that I'm mentioning actually here in this link list. So I'm not putting all the links separately in there, but you can check them later on in this bundle of links. So myportfolio.school.nz is actually a nationwide ePortfolio service supported by the Ministry of Education here in New Zealand. And currently we already have 915 schools connected to it of the about 2,500 schools that are in New Zealand. On Mahara, you can do a range of things. Mahara itself is a Maori word and means to think. And you can create content directly on it in blogs or via regular text boxes, and also some other smaller artifacts. But you can also collect learning artifacts that you have stored on your computer or in the cloud, aggregate content, for example, via RSS feeds, reflect on your learning artifacts, organize them to present them in a portfolio that you then share with others. You can also collaborate in groups using forums, creating group portfolios or project pages, and you can network with other users on your Mahara instance. In the following slides, I'll just look at some of the few interesting things about our ePortfolio system, and then Ellen will show you some of the examples. And our focus on Mahara is actually to provide a learner-centered ePortfolio system in which the learner is in the driver's seat and decides who shall have access to what. And so it can be used as a complementary system to an LMS where more formal education takes place. In Mahara, you can easily embed content from services such as YouTube, SlideShare, Blogster, WikiEducator, Prezi, Woki, VoicePledge, and others. And we also have two plugins, one for Google Apps, but that includes all kinds of Google documents, calendars, books, also the collections in Google, and so on. But you can also use, if your institution has a Live@edu account, then you can also embed Live@edu documents into portfolio pages, make them visible, and then when you click on them, students can go to them and actually also make changes there in their regular environment of Google Apps or Live@edu. We also have 2 mobile applications. The open source Mahara Droid is an Android application, and then there's also a closed source Portfolio app application for the iPhone that was just recently revised. And Mahara Droid lets you upload any file that you can share on an Android phone, and Portfolio app allows you to upload images. Trend Merlot, I haven't tried that, whether you can embed pages from there. That would have to be checked if it's an iframe. If that is the case, a code can be written for that. Mahara also works on the iPad or on an Android tablet to varying degrees depending on the functionality of the tablets and what they allow already in-house from the technology that is being used there. As we are an open source project, we believe that you should always be able to keep your portfolio also when you leave a Mahara instance, and you should not have to depend on one to keep your portfolio and to view your portfolio. So therefore we have 2 export formats, an HTML format which you can download as a zip file with all your learning artifacts and also the portfolio pages. So you can keep that as a backup file on CD or DVD and look at it also offline. And then there's a Leap2A export, that is a machine-readable export file which an administrator of another Mahara instance can then import again, or it can also be imported into another ePortfolio system that also follows the Leap2A standard. Yes, Leap2A is a standard. It comes out of the UK, and a link is in the links list then thread. Leap2A is based on RSS and Atom feeds. Mahara has a very strong native connection to Moodle because the first Mahara developers used to be Moodle developers. And so we allow natively for single sign-on via MNet, that is Moodle networking. And in Moodle 2, you can also use the portfolio functionality to send content from Moodle directly to Mahara. In addition, you can install an assignment submission plugin, which we recently updated, and that allows you to create portfolio pages from Mahara in Moodle so that the formal assessment part can be performed there, and you can also keep the grades directly in Moodle, but the student portfolio actually sits in Mahara and can then be developed further over there. Of course, that connection so far has only been for Moodle, but of course we also get questions about well, how can we connect other learning management systems to it? And so the Ministry of Education here in New Zealand actually funded a project and is still funding that project to extend the connectivity and the interoperability of Mahara with other LMS systems. Primarily the trials are here and the proof of concept for the systems that we use in New Zealand, which are KnowledgeNet, Ultranet, and Moodle. And but eventually that can also be used for other learning management systems because a web services framework has been developed that allows for the connection of any other system in an easier way because then they can consume that API and work with it. The project that we currently have is that the phase 1 means to create accounts and populate groups. Phase 2 will focus on sending of notifications, and then phase 3 will look at the actual moving of accounts. So other systems like Blackboard or also Desire to Learn or so could then connect to the system, to Mahara, and also use it. But Mahara is not only what you get when you go to the download page and download the software or go into Git and download the code directly from there, but you can also extend the core functionality with community contributed plugins, or you can even create your own. And furthermore, Mahara has also already been translated by community members into numerous languages. For example, French, German, Greek, Japanese, Mari, Slovenian, Spanish, and many, many others. And something that we are also very proud of is that already 2 books have been published on it. The recent one is the one on the left, the Mahara 1.4 cookbook by Ellen Marie. This was released in September. It is available as regular paper book, but also as ebook, and gives you a very large number of ideas how to use Mahara in many different contexts. The first book that was published was on Mahara 1.2, which is a beginner's guide and can still be used also for ideas of how to use Mahara with users. Debbie, the link to the ebook is in the general link that I had sent, and there you find all the sites that I referenced. And last but not least, Mahara is an open source project, and so it's not just about the software, but actually even more so about the community, as the community makes the software. So there's not a single company standing behind it. I do work for Catalyst IT in New Zealand, and we are the lead developers of the project, but there are also developers over in Europe, and the translators sit anywhere where they speak their language. So we have a fantastic translator in Japan, and the other translators are all in Europe. And so there's not one company being behind it and bringing the project along, but it is really a community effort. And so we use forums and ISC to communicate and support each other and other users and developers. We also have monthly developer meetings, a quarterly newsletter that highlights a lot of use case scenarios, upcoming events, development work, and so on. But there are also country-specific news, and people blog about Mahara. And recently there was also founded a Mahara user group, which I think meets about every 2 to 3 months. There have been online meetings so far, and also one face-to-face meeting. But now it's actually time that we look at some of the portfolio examples that will take us back to our initial question of what you use an ePortfolio for. So let's take some of the possibilities together with Ellen Marie. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. I apologize first off that I have a little bit of laryngitis, so I might sound a little hoarse, and I hope I sound okay. And thank you, Christina, for that. What I thought I would do is walk you through some portfolios that have been built in a number of different instances. So this first one that you're looking at was built at Plymouth State University. A little bit about Plymouth. They rolled out Mahara 2 years ago. And when they rolled it out, it wasn't an official announcement of an ePortfolio system. They just installed it and let people know that it was available. They had been piloting another system for about 5 years, and they just didn't really want to roll this out as an official stance. Within a year, it had been adopted across campus in all sorts of ways, and so I'll be showing you some of those ways. This first one is project-based. This is an example of a portfolio that was built in an advanced Spanish class. The instructor used to have the students build their presentation portfolio using a Microsoft product publication or publisher. And he was never really all that happy with it. So when he saw Mahara, he thought it was perfect, and he had his students building their final project in Mahara. So this is an example of one student's final project. What's nice about this is she has video and audio and documents, so she can really show her knowledge of the language, but also she has things about the culture. And so this is a great way to demonstrate language acquisition on a high level. The next example is actually 2 things. One of the professors at Plymouth State, Marianne McGarry, had published a book, and she wanted a companion website to go with the book, and decided to build it in Mahara. So this is actually her front page that she created for individuals who wanted more information supplement to her book. But in addition to that, she continued her research with her students, and their work is also part of this website that they built using Mahara. The tabs at the top are the different pages that students are contributing their work to. What's nice about Mahara is that if you contribute your work to a group effort, it also stays in your personal portfolio, so that the owner of the content actually retains ownership, which is different from what happens in a learning management system. And the student can repurpose any of those artifacts in any number of ways in other pages in their portfolio. This is an example of a portfolio that was developed by a student in the teacher certification program. So it began as a template, and a page was made for each standard. The text on the left is a statement of the standard and then the key indicators for that standard. The students then would copy the template and begin working in the template. They would add artifacts that represent how they have met these key indicators and then reflection on that. So what you're looking at is one student's final portfolio that shows how he meets each of the standards. Across the top are tabs for the various parts of the portfolio, and he dedicated a page to each standard. Now, in the list of links that we have for you, these portfolios that we're looking at are also available for you to go and look at more extensively, so you could really see the level of work that has been done on these. And the depth of reflection, I think, is really outstanding. This is a page from the graduate course, as you can see here, and actually this is a page from the research that I had mentioned 2 slides previously. So this is continued work and contribution by the students that are working with this professor. And to answer Trent's question, at Plymouth State, they installed it themselves and they sustained it themselves, and they actually didn't customize anything. They put in a few plugins, but that's it. They pretty much used it out of the box. They also committed to offering portfolios for life to students because they have it installed on their own servers. They offer it for free. And they felt it was a good way to keep alum connected to the college and also to bring them in to discussions with students so they could work with them within the ePortfolio system on a number of different things, including co-curricular activities, building the students' professional portfolio, working in classes with students. So they really saw a value in offering the ePortfolio system to their students for life. This is an example of what can be done in a group, and I realize this isn't very clear, but if we have time, I'll take you to the actual page of this where it's a little clearer. So what this is a page that was created in a group. Each of the students is a blogger or a commentator in this daily, and when they post a new posting in their personal blog, it's automatically updated here on this group page. So the students can authentically publish in a journal type setting. This is public. It allows for commentary by the readers. And in addition to that, if you see these little orange dots next to the name of the blog post, it allows individuals to follow their favorite blogger by RSS feed. So this is one way that students can contribute to a group effort. At the same time, these blog posts remain in their personal portfolio, and they can repurpose this. So they could use one blog post on a professional presentation to show something wonderful they did, or they can put this blog in another page. So there's a number of different ways that this is very beneficial to the student. Okay, and this is an example of a student's portfolio for art school. What you're actually looking at is the student's view within their own portfolio. The difference between what the student is seeing and what the world would see is in the lower left-hand corner. There's a little drop-down menu that allows the student to send this page to an instructor for assessment. This little drop-down menu would not appear on the page that is being looked at by someone other than the student. What's nice about this is that the individual or individuals that are assessing the student's art portfolio can click on any of these images. The image will appear separately, and they can zoom in very closely to examine the actual technique of the student and the color, and also get additional information about this particular piece. So it's a really great way for students to submit their art portfolio for entrance into a fine arts school. The version I'm displaying is 1.4. So the next thing that I'm actually showing you is the home page of a group. And I have a number of things on here that I hope this doesn't look too crowded here, but I'll point out a couple of things on here. So the first thing is that on this home page, there's a list of all the members and their photographs. If the image is clicked on, you can find out a little bit of information from the profile page of each individual. There's a lot of forums, and they can see the recent forum posts displayed right on the home page for the group. On the right-hand side are a number of different things. The first thing is group pages, which are pages that the group have built together for this group. Below that are pages shared to this group by others. So if any one of these members is building their own page in their own portfolio and they want to share it with the other members of the group, they would be listed there. And below that is a drop-down menu that allows a student to submit one of their pages to the administrators of this group for assessment. So I've clicked on the drop-down menu, and you'll notice the pop-up window there that appears that I have kind of outlined in green is a list of all the students' pages in their portfolio. They would select the one that they want to submit, and then they would click the Submit button. When an administrator looks at this page, this group page, they will see all of the group pages that we see here, and they will also see the pages that were submitted to the group for assessment. The members of the group, that is the students, will not see those. Just the administrators will. The pages will show the date and time of submission. The instructor can click on the view and see the page, and they can also provide extensive feedback on it. At the time a student submits that page, it's locked, so they can't go in and edit the page, and the instructor can keep it locked, or they can release it back to the student with a click of a button. Also on this home page, just above that green box outline that I drew, you'll see all the way on the right a button that says Copy this page. What that is a template. It says language template. So if the student needs to access a template that's available to this group, they could go to the group homepage, easily find the template, click Copy this page, and the template would then go into their personal portfolio where they could begin working on it. I'm not following the questions from the chat room, so if there's some important ones, I'll try to get to them after this. If that's okay with everybody. Oh, thanks, Christina. Okay. So a couple of other things. This is on the more personal side of a Mahara portfolio. What you're actually looking at is the dashboard. So when you first log into Mahara, you land on your dashboard page. you customize this page based on what you want to see when you first log into Mahara. So I've added a number of things here to give you an example of some very helpful things that could be found on a student's dashboard. The first thing in the upper left-hand corner is a plan. Now this one's labeled thesis plan, but you can create any number of plans in Mahara, and they can be for any number of things. So they can be a to-do list, they could be a planning list, a course construction list, all kinds of things. And when you build your plan, you put in the completion date, the title of the item that is part of this plan, and a description of that item, which you can't see right now, but I'll explain that in a second, and then whether or not it's been completed. If you're behind, if you're late, it will turn red, which will remind you that you need to do something here. Under title, in that column title, where you see the list of action items, that's actually a link. If you were to, for example, to click on statement of question, which is the first item under title, that little window would expand and you could read the description of that in there. What's nice about the expansion rather than pop-ups and leading you away or having all that text on here is it allows you to put a lot of information in a small area without it being, crowded. So you can expand any one of those as you need and contract them as you need to. In addition, on this particular dashboard are the recent forum posts. So if the student is a member of some groups, they can follow what's happening in some of the groups instantly when they log in. There's a place for the inbox where they could see messages that have been recently sent to them in the system. If they're following any pages in the system, they would see a list of topics that they're following. What's below that is an RSS feed from an external blog, so one that's being hosted at blogger.com. So if you're following RSS feeds for journals or somebody else's blog or all kinds of other things that you want to keep on top of, you can put those RSS feeds right into your dashboard and see them when you log in. There's a list of the groups, and all the way on the right is a list of the current online users so that you can see who's currently in the system. Again, this is configurable by the individual themselves, so they would put the most important information for them on this page. The next personal part of the portfolio is the profile page, and the profile page is available to everyone in the system, but it can also be made public if the individual chooses to make it public. So the profile page is configured, again, by the individual themselves, so they can put what they want in here. Some of the options that are available on this page that aren't available in other areas of Mahara is the wall, which works very much like Facebook. My friends, so you can friend people in Mahara, and then you can put a list of your friends on your profile page. This particular one has brings my Twitter feed in, and an external blog. I have, you'll notice, a Twitter tweet button and a Facebook like button and a counter. These are plugins. The Twitter tweet and the Facebook like are plugins that you can put into Mahara. Now, I have to say that I run my own Mahara. I am not by any stretch of the imagination a sysadmin, but I was able to install it on a server. I followed the directions in the Mahara.org and set up my own database and set this up myself and installed these plugins. It was absolutely so easy, I couldn't believe it. And they're available on the Mahara.org site. So, you can connect this. What's nice about this is you can connect this to so many of the other things that you do in your life outside of the formal education system, like Twitter, like your outside blogs, like Twitter, like Facebook. And so it's wonderful to bring those things into your portfolio. So one thing, I don't know if this is a poll, but the next part I was going to talk about the different levels of access that you can set in Mahara, which I think is really a really great feature of Mahara. So, oops, sorry, I'll go back. Okay, so after you've built your page or pages in Mahara, you can go and set who has access. So this first page shows you how easy it is to select who you're going to give access to. You can select to make it completely public or to share it with all logged in users or your friends, with specific groups, with specific individuals, or even within groups, specific individuals within groups, like all of the administrators or whatever. You can set the access date and time, and you can allow comments and choose to moderate those comments if you want. So that's the first way you can set access. The second thing is that you can set a secret URL, which I'll talk about in just one second. I want to explain what we're looking at. You can also, you have a share page where you can instantly see a list of all of your collections, which are equivalent to websites. It's a collection of pages that you've built in Mahara, and when you build a collection, it will add tabs across the top, and you will have a web page in like less than 20 seconds. If you've built your pages, it's so easy to create a collection. It takes less than a minute. So you'll have a list of all your collections and all your pages. You can instantly see who you're sharing those pages with. You can edit that access if you want to, or add a secret URL. So a secret URL allows you to share that page with an individual or individuals outside the system without making it public. So some of the uses for that would be if a teacher constructed a class web page and only wanted to share it with parents, they could create a secret URL and give the secret URL to parents who could access the page that the teacher built, but it would not be accessible to the general public. It would not be picked up by Google or anything like that, for example. You could also create a web page with your resume to give to an employer, and perhaps you want to customize that based on who is going to be viewing your resume and cover letter. So you could create a secret URL for each little resume package that you build and send it off so that they wouldn't see what the other people are seeing. You could make it highly strategic in that way. So I guess I'll stop there, and and we can take some questions, and then also I can give you some take you into a live system if we have time for that.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I mean, and Christina, both of you, for such a comprehensive overview in the short time that we have. We've had a lot of great questions come in, and I think maybe we'll go ahead and start with Christina first in terms of she's really been monitoring the chat. But I know there was at least one question I think from Joshua that she'd like to respond to, and then I'll go ahead and ask a few questions of my own.
Sure, that sounds good to me. Just need to find the slides because then you can just go there. Joshua, your question was whether you can export or save a snapshot for summative assessment. That is possible. The student would have to make that snapshot. But you can use the export functionality for that, because the export doesn't just allow you to export your entire portfolio, but you can also just export individual pieces or individual pages, or also collections of pages. That makes it quite easy, and you can always do that in HTML and or Leap2A. Yes, you can also print to PDF. Just click on the print button at the bottom of the page. Actually, in connection to that was Trent's question about, just have to find it, about the ePortfolio applications and student and teacher interface and capabilities to support learning over time. As I've mentioned in the beginning, Mahara is a learner-centered portfolio, and that means that there that we focus on the learner and that it is individual learning. So it is not an assessment portfolio system. There is no grade book in there. There are no rubrics in there. But I know that some users use it with that. They create their own rubrics and put them into the feedback section. But there is not something where you can then aggregate these things in a database. And that's what a lot of our users use Moodle for. So they do the formal assessment on the Moodle side, and then they keep everything in Mahara. And actually, teachers do not really have too many different rights than students on the portfolio. They can create course groups so that the students can submit work, the functionality that Ellen showed earlier. But otherwise, there's not really a big difference, and therefore you can create student portfolios but also teacher portfolios in very much the same way.
So Christina, I think that also relates to Ruth from San Francisco State, her question in terms of the duplication of features, forums, groups, email chat that are available in Moodle and also in Mahara, and what that distribution is across like what you do in Moodle and what you do in Mahara, and what are the boundaries between Mahara as a learning management system versus ePortfolio for assessment and showcase.
Definitely. It was definitely intended as a standalone implementation, but it can be integrated with Moodle. In terms of forums and emails for sending messages, there is a certain overlap simply because we didn't just extend it as a plugin for Moodle, but a standalone version. However, you can turn off certain features in Mahara from the site administrator interface. So if you do not want to use forms in Mahara or don't want to allow certain other things, then you can turn it off and just use them on the Moodle side, for example.
One question that I had for both Christina and Ellen, is this question about cost. I mean, we know that it's open source, and along with Mahara, there's also options with respect to the open source portfolio within Sakai, and I've always been amused by the comparison of open source as the free puppy versus free beer. And even though it's open source, it's still something that needs to be maintained as would a free puppy. It's not exactly free. Now, you have here on one hand, we know that Mahara is offered as software as a service where you pay a hosting fee but no license fees. But then also Ellen talking about the fact that she was able to install it on a server and sort of maintain it herself fairly easily by downloading information, instructions, and resources from Mahara.org, and also this very strong and growing community of users. In terms of, I guess quite frankly, what kinds of resources are needed? Is this the kind of thing that an individual faculty member wanting to explore ePortfolios could install for an individual course, or does it require more institutional resources? And if you could talk a little bit about what have been your experiences in terms of interacting with various institutions and what they have done.
In terms of its open source software, and that ties into Trent's question, do lots of people use the company? And I would say the majority doesn't, because most of our users are universities and schools who often don't have a lot of money, so they install it on their own, keep it as long as possible, make the necessary security updates all by themselves. And the user or the developer documentation allows for that, and we also support these users on the forums, and they never pay anything to the project. But we also have some instances where we provide the hosting and where we also make customizations, which fortunately a lot of times we can actually feed back into the project so that they are advantageous to our clients, and not just to our clients at Catalyst, but also to clients and other support companies, and but also to the greater good for all Mahara users. And that is just the community sense and why we develop an open source product, so that everybody can actually use it and does not have to depend on one company for support or for actually staying with that company all the time, having to stay with them, but they are very much free to do everything on their own or work with us. So Pace University, as an example, also on the East Coast, they have a very large Mahara instance, and Beth Klingner told me they have about 90 customizations that they have done themselves. So you can go extremely elaborate and make many changes, or on the other hand, you can also go with the stock standard Mahara and use that in your institution. And if I may just very briefly show one adaptation that we've done for our ePortfolio instance, because Joshua was asking whether you can adapt the dashboard. There, just a very brief glimpse at it. I hope you can see my screen sharing. My screen with the Firefox window and showing the dashboard. And there we've adapted the general dashboard boxes of Mahara for primary school students so that they actually have a more engaging image that they can use. Okay, are there any other questions?
Judy, I know you've been monitoring the chat. Would there be any question? Would you like to ask the next question?
Joshua asked a question about the program designing a dashboard for students and to frame a more structured program experience. I wondered if someone could address that. Can a program design a dashboard that students cannot edit for themselves to frame a more structured program experience?
You can definitely do that, but that would have to be done in the code, because usually what Mahara provides is default settings, and then because it is learner-centered, the students can then, or also the instructors can then decide what they want to change, where they want to change it. So the dashboard is pretty much changeable by the students, but of course as a customization it could be made so that everybody always gets the same things. And Sean, your question about the name of the template graphic tool again, as you're referring to the ePortfolio image there, that can be done in one of the template files of Mahara, so anybody can adopt that. But we are also currently looking into whether we can make that theme available to everybody in Mahara. I can show the dashboard again, just a second please. So that should work now. So what we have done here, we've taken the general Mahara dashboard boxes, which show how you can create, collect content, organize, share, and network, and put the most important ones into this one image here, so that the students get easy access to where they actually need to go. So they can just click on Upload Files and then go to their Files area, where they can organize all their files, or they can also just as easily go to Find Friends or Share Pages. So that is the screen that Ellen also showed earlier, where you can give access to certain portfolios or to collections of portfolios and make them available to either just one person, a group of people, or everybody online, or just to everybody who has an account in Mahara.
So Trent raised a question from Steve. When you submit a page or collection for assessment, does that lock the content before it gets assessed?
Yes, it does. It locks most of the content.
Okay. Thank you. So Ellen, I had a question for you with respect to, it seems like one of the unique features of Mahara is this sort of the integration with the blog. And you talked about how when students are, they can contribute to a group-based ePortfolio but still maintain ownership over, I assume, individual postings or artifacts and so on. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about that.
Sure. So in Mahara, you have any number of blogs. You can create any number of blogs, and the blogs will be in your content area of your portfolio. And when you build a page in Mahara, you can put in an entire blog or a single blog post. You can also say how many blog posts you want to be displayed. So if you drag an entire blog into a page, you can then say only show one post at a time. And that works for any of the pages in Mahara. Now, the way that this group page works is that the students put their blog in, create their blog in their own portfolio. And they make their blog available to the public, because our Science Daily is available to the public. And the way that we're going to add it to the Science Daily is as an RSS feed. So the student is retaining ownership of their blog. And so what you're actually seeing is an RSS feed from each student's individual blog. So the blog posts are not retained in the group's content area, but retained in the student's own content area of your personal portfolio. Does that answer the question? Or I could show you this live if you want.
I think that makes sense. So it's more. So from the group portfolio, it's more linking. It's just linking back to the individual student portfolio.
Right.
For this individual blog.
Displaying. Okay. Right. It's displaying the student's blog within the page.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question to ask. This is Judy, and Liz mentioned that she was interested in prior learning assessment, and I wondered if either of you, Christina or Ellen, could address prior learning assessment in Mahara.
I'd be happy to do that. At the institution where I work, we do prior learning assessment, but I'd like to say that, and they're looking at Mahara, that I've gone through prior learning assessment myself, and so I think I would address it from a personal standpoint. Depending on how you set up prior learning assessment, usually you tell the student the kind of things that you're going to need to see. So you could create a template of what the student would need to put in for each course that they want to get credit for. And I hope I'm explaining this right, but the best example I can use is right now I signed up for the Stanford, one of the free Stanford courses. And I'm not a Stanford student, but I want to go through the course and perhaps submit it for credit. And I'm doing this mostly because I want to go through the experience that a student might go through and show how it will be done. So I created a page in my Mahara portfolio on which I'm going to blog about my reflections, submit artifacts of learning, and connect it to anything else that I need to as I work through the course, so that I'm collecting all of the things that I may need when I submit my ePortfolio for credit. If I know ahead of time what kind of things I'm going to need to submit, I could build my page that way, or if I received a template from the person I was working with, I could just begin adding my content to that. So if I created a page for each one of the courses that I want credit for, I could be working within that page to build artifacts of learning and my reflections on that learning that I could submit. So when I'm ready to submit it, if my mentor has not created a group, so I'm not going to submit it that way through a group, I could give them access individually to my work, and they could go through it. There's a feedback link at the bottom of each page with a pretty extensive HTML editing bar and an unlimited number of characters, I believe, that they can type in there, and they can also attach a document. So they could leave me pretty extensive feedback on each page, like you need to add something to this page, you might want to move this comment to a different area, you need to correct the grammar, all those kind of things. And all of that then could be submitted for review to a committee at some point, because I can use a secret URL, they could create a group, any number of ways that I could do that. So if we're using this for prior learning assessment, aside from the phone call interview that you might have to do for your assessment, you certainly could put everything, pretty much everything, in your portfolio and submit it for assessment. So I hope that kind of helps.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Christina. It's been a tremendous hour, and we really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through and show us so many great examples of, how Mahara can be implemented in a variety of contexts. Certainly, on behalf of our team here, we appreciate you presenting and sharing this work with us. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Patty to wrap up and also announce the winner of the Mahara cookbook.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you, Ellen and Christina. That was an excellent conversation, and I just wanted to remind everybody that there were a lot of questions in the chat. I don't think we got to them all. So please do. We're going to send you right now, as soon as I announce this winner, I'm going to send you 2 files. One is a resource document that'll send you to the forum, the resource pages, all the archives for the sessions that we've covered. So coming at you right now. First, however, I randomly drew a name from the 50 participants that we had today, and Debbie won. Debbie number 1, I think there was 2 Debbies. Debbie, you are the lucky winner of Ellen's Mahara 1.4 cookbook. So thank you so much again, Debbie, for joining us. And if you wouldn't mind, you can send it privately to the moderators, your full name and your address, and we'll send that to you. So Ellen, did you want to say briefly something about this cookbook? I think you wanted to clarify that it isn't actually a cookbook.
Sure, thanks. Actually, the book, it's a little different than a how-to manual. It actually has various recipes on ideas for how you can use portfolios in a classroom, and it even shows how you could use it, for promotion and tenure and things like that. And I want to say that Debbie, I hope she doesn't mind if I share this. She's actually in my acknowledgments for the book, because when I made the book, as I was writing the book, I met with several educators in the state of New Hampshire that tried some of the recipes and gave me some feedback, and Debbie Boatwright is actually one of the people that I thank in my book. So it's pretty cool that.
Wow. Well, that's very cool.
Yeah,
and it was a random pick, and it just turns out that that there's that connection. So serendipity, right? So Debbie, just one more reminder to put your address in there to us privately, and we'll send that out. So that's the cookbook. There's also a link to that on the resource document that was just transferred to everybody. So if you were confused, you were like, what's this popping up? Let me know and I can send it again to you, but a file should have just, 2 files should have just popped up for you to save. Again, one is the comparison chart that we put together. So in conclusion, I just wanted to plug ePortfolio California. We've been working with some partners out there, AAC&U, EPAC, ABLE, and we have a lot of new resources on our website right now. That link is also on the handout, so be sure to check out some of the recorded sessions from last year's ePortfolio Forum. And also I should mention that the 2012 AAC&U Forum is coming up. I think it's January 25th or 26th. I'm sure there will be information coming out to you. Also, Helen would like me to just remind everybody that the EPAC Community of Practice and Wiki is available. There's a link there that's also on the handout. And please join the EPAC community, because Helen does a great job of passing news on. She's very active in this field, so please join the Wiki. And then last but not least, I'm going to let Judy Batson talk a little bit about ABLE and wrap this up. So thank you all.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for a wonderful session. Great questions and comments. And those can be continued at the forum for Mahara, which is on the ABLE site. I sent the URL out a little bit earlier, but it's also on your resource page. ABLE's a nonprofit professional organization, and we do things like conferences, and we build resources, and we work with other organizations like EPAC and ePortfolio California, Currently, we're planning for our 2012 big annual meeting, our annual conference, which will be held in Boston. And you are invited to submit a proposal for that and to join us for that conference. We have some incredibly impressive and distinguished featured speakers, and it is a really good conference that gets rave reviews. So please check out that URL. It should also be on your resource page, and be sure to look into joining ABLE. Thanks a lot, and I'll turn it back to Patty to sign off.
Okay, I was just going to remind everybody that we are going to be continuing this series in the spring, and we have a great lineup. We'll be announcing that soon, but I think we have a date for our first session, which is Wednesday, January 18th at the same time, 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So look for news about that. And then once again, really quick, just because it was so fun to see where everybody is. Oh, they're still up there. If you didn't get a chance to put a little pin on where you're joining us from, maybe on your way out, you could just let us know. It's wonderful to see so many different countries around the world participating, so thanks again.
Yeah, so thank you very much from my end for attending this session, and we can definitely continue the discussions in the ABLE forum, or if you wish, also on mahara.org. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.